Okay, it looks like we're live. Let me just go into my YouTube quick and check. It'll take a few minutes anyway for everybody to find us. I don't see it yet. Okay.
I love how we're fasting and we don't even realize it.
I know. It's so crazy. All right. Can you look up my YouTube channel and see if you can see it? I can't see it. It says it's shared, so. Let's see. Let's see.
It says that you're live, but I don't physically see us.
Okay. See, I see there's the little 0 next to it now, which I didn't see before. Okay. Well, we're just going to. It says I'm on.
Okay.
It says it's streaming live to YouTube. So like, don't fuck with us now. So, well, here, let me see. View on YouTube. Let me see. Let me see if I can see it. Okay. Yeah, there we are. Okay.
We're here.
Okay, we're there. I just want to make sure we're there before we start.
Arrived.
Okay. So yeah. Welcome. I am Terry Ann Russell, your host of the Sacred Wellness Podcast, where healing meets transformation. And today my guest is Keegan. Keegan is an artist, a visionary, and an intuitive, and she's on the path of recycling the feminine. Really, for us, it's time to heal, awaken, and rise. This is Sacred Wellness, and welcome to the show. So welcome, Keegan. I'm so excited today to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. First off, I'm so excited to share this space with you, Terry, and, show people kind of what our friendship is about and how deep we get in our conversations and how we share a lot of the same vision and we're both inspired to create vision from each other.
Yeah, I love that. So tell me a little bit your perspective on how we met. I mean, I have my perspective, and I knew beforehand I was getting guidance that I would meet somebody along my path on my journey when we were traveling on the road. So tell me your perspective. What happened from your perspective about what you were getting and when we actually met?
Okay. I think we're right in the midst of COVID, I want to say. Correct me if I'm wrong about the timing. Sometimes my timing gets messed up because I feel like it's all parallel and linear anyway. But it was right in like the hub of the hatred and the confusion and the split of everything that was happening in society around COVID, around different controversial topics, really, head on head, guns, everything. We were really in this space as a society, I think, of having to split or decide. The power of choice, I think, was really in our faces at this time. And at that time, I was going through things within my marriage, and COVID was a big eye opener, I think, for a lot of people in many different ways. And I know it awoken something in me to really dig in and decide what was important. And so for a while, I was asking for guidance. I was asking for this higher knowledge or just a connection of shared consciousness, you know what I mean? Or this connection of true understanding and love, and just somebody or something to say, hey, you're not crazy. Like, this is a vision. You know what I mean? This is a feeling. This is something bigger. And I had been calling it in for a while and having these wild dreams of connecting in sisterhood and connecting in this soul bonding and this tribal like feeling of like this wildness, but this sacredness to it, you know?
Yeah.
And my husband and I were camping a lot at the time because we were disconnecting to connect. Because, like I said, COVID was taking a toll on things. People in family were hating each other. You know, there was a lot of division everywhere. We were seeing it in workplaces, and it was leaking into marriage and things. And I was really asking for some kind of sign about healing. I was asking for some kind of sign about path. And Justin and I were talking, and that day was so chaotic. Like I felt like, oh, did I say we went camping? Did I say that?
Yes.
Okay, we went camping. And I just remember that day being so chaotic. Like all of the energies in the universe were seriously working against me that day. Like it seemed like everything said, don't go, don't go, don't go, like, don't go camping. Down to us setting up our camper. And Olivia, at the time, my daughter, she was creating potions around the fire ring there. And we weren't even there an hour. We were setting up the camper, and she tripped over the dog leash and hit her face
I
onto the
remember.
fire ring and literally busted her cheek open. And we had to stop everything we were doing and leave and go to the hospital, my husband and I. And she had to get her face glued and all this stuff. And we're like, screw it. We are already there. Like, let's just go back and camp. If it becomes too much, we'll go home. So again, doing my journaling, cards, things like that, trying to connect. And I look over and I see this red Cadillac, like red, candy apple red, which is like my color. And it's like a big symbol for me, especially at the time with rubies and just everything that was happening in my life. Red was like, hey, look at me. And it says Reiki Mom. Reiki Mom in this beautiful camper. And I see this lady with blonde hair and her husband and one daughter. And it was like this mirror of me. And I was like, what are the odds, Justin, that we're asking for the healing and everything? And then this red car is here with Reiki Mom. And like, here we are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then one thing led to another, and we wound up at each other's campsites sharing such great connection, such great stories, such great harmony. And, you know, finding out about Anthony and the connection there, because I also was having these dreams and this higher vision and these, like I said, this sisterhood and this gold. And it was like, beautiful. And I knew something bigger was there, like not to give up, you know, like not to go into the darkness, don't feed into the darkness, but that
Yeah.
there is something building there. There's life happening, you know, and a bigger connection coming in. And it was ours.
I remember. And from my perspective, we weren't even supposed to be there. We had also had issues, and we were going back and forth what we were going to do and where we were going to stay. And I have to preface by saying I had Anthony is my son in spirit, and he had given me a vision of a woman with all gray hair. And he told me that I would meet her when we were on the road. And I was like, okay, well, I don't know how any of this is going to play out. You know, let's go and we'll just do it. And so I wasn't really ever like looking for anything, right? At that time, I wasn't really trusting a lot of the information I was being given yet. And so I was like, okay, whatever happens, happens. And we ended up there, and we ended up spending 2 weeks together. It was the most amazing 2 weeks. And when I met you, you had dark hair. So I was a little confused because I felt this connection, and I was like, but she doesn't have gray hair. And so here I am in my analytical mind, right? And I'm like trying to prophesize in my mind, like, well, you know, this is what I told, and this is what it looks like, and why isn't it working out? Or maybe this isn't her, you know? And so I was like, but I had this feeling, this knowing within that we had done this before, and I had been with you before.
Exactly.
And there was such a strong connection between us and our families. And when I told you this, because I didn't reveal it right away. I was like, she's going to think I'm a lunatic. I'm not going to tell her. And then a few days later, I had told you. And do you remember what you said to me? You were like, I just colored my hair. And I was like, oh my God. Like, so that's what I want to talk about next.
And I was creating that painting that was behind you of a mother and son, and I was intuitively doing that from my dream states. Before we met, I forgot about that.
Yes. And so
I just saw it.
I put it up there so everybody could see it. So Keegan started creating this before she even met me, before she even knew the story of Anthony and I. And she was having these visions and this creation. And that's what I love about you. You're such an amazing artist and intuitive. And you really put this love and feeling into your artwork. And you can see it. I mean, it came through so beautifully. It's one of my favorite pieces and I treasure it. But yeah, I want to talk about a little bit about finding trust in this madness, right? Because I was struggling with trust at the time. You were struggling with, help me on this path. Like, what is it for me? And I was going through another existential crisis in my life. It had almost been 2 years since his passing. And I was also in this place of really doubt, fear, lack, mistrust. But on the other hand, the other side of that was this intuitive knowing, this feeling that I had within my body. And it was like a fight within me, right? And you know exactly what I'm describing. So you want to share a little bit about what that's like for you and finding that trust in the madness?
So, I think as women in general, we can relate to this warrior that we keep inside. You know what I mean? And sometimes we're really good at bringing that out, and sometimes we're not. And we turn that warrior on inside, and we really get destructive. Because we hold both the creative space and the destroyer within us, you know? And I think that for me, being in the darkness and then seeing such darkness around me, it made me open up, and it broke my heart space open and cracked me open, and it really made me go back inside to really determine what I believe and what sat right with me, because it is not natural for me to feel fear. It is natural for me to pick up a shield and fight. It is not natural for me to freeze. And that warrior inside of me, we were cool, like we knew each other. And in that time I was rocked, you know. I didn't know what the hell, you know. You get so absorbed in your life, and you get so absorbed in the day to day and that constant internal battle that you forget about what's happening externally and what you're creating. And for me, like you said, it was that coming out of this darkness and having to like really look around and say, who am I? Why am I here? What am I fighting for? You know what I mean? My fight's not dead. I don't really want to die, because at the time I did, I like wanted to kill myself. Like, it was crazy. And it was this egoic part of me that wanted to die, because all of the truth around me was shattered again. And I had formed this shell of, I know myself, and I am this hard person, and I don't trust until trust is given, and all of these things, you know. And I was really in a position that I had to learn to trust and open myself, or I wasn't going to survive. You know what I mean? Like, it was a life or death situation. And it wasn't a life or death situation like I couldn't put food on the table. It was a life or death situation of my soul. I was crushed, like, as a human. And
Yeah.
I think it's the part you need to be in for creation to happen, because it's like, really, when you start looking and saying, okay, I can't control what's happening, but I can control how I'm reacting, or I can control, you know, what I'm going to choose. Because I think that is what makes us the chosen ones, the ability to choose.
Yes, because you don't have to choose, right? Just because you're chosen doesn't mean. And a lot of us don't want to. You know, I've fought it for a long time. that shield you're talking about, putting up and fighting, that was so natural to me because of all the trauma I experienced in my life, right? I was so apt. I lived so long in that masculine energy that was very natural for me. And the fear too. The fear was something that I was not used to, but it was something that all was all encompassing. And I think a lot of that for me was those feminine archetypes within me when I had lived before, past lives that were like coming up, and they're like, hey girl, should be a little fear around this because it is dangerous. Like, we were killed previously, we could be killed again. And I'm like, what is all this
We're
shit?
really weak trials.
Yeah. The title of this show is Dismantling the Narrative. And a lot of that is learning to use this piece right here, our voice. And I always thought as a masculine that I was very in tune with my throat chakra. I thought that I used my voice. The louder I was, the more you were going to hear me. I thought that was power. And I come to find out all these years later that that's not what it was. That was a conditioning that I had been required to use as the masculine within me. And it took me many years to get to the point where I'm at the balancing of what that is now. Tell me a little bit about your throat chakra, how that feels for you, having that.
I think I could relate to that because in many ways, growing up, the loudest person did win, not the right person, not the smartest person, not the emotionally mature person. It was the loudest person because you had to submit. And I think part of being in that masculine for me was, if I'm smart, I'm right, and I'm loud, you have to submit, because I submitted even when you weren't right, even when you weren't, you weren't right. You weren't in the right energy, but I had to submit because we're just taught that. It's something like hardwired. And even when you look at nature, animals check each other with a growl, with a snap, with a roar. This is our warning. This is our, hey, I'm going to attack, And I think that as women, we're supposed to be nurtured a little differently because we possess both ends of the spectrum. We possess this innate ability to give birth and bring life into the world and mother this child and grow these humans. So if we have this ability to literally create and give birth, then we do also have this fire inside of us that starts in our womb and comes all the way up, and it breathes out fire, and we are like the dragon in that. And when you're talking about like women in our cycle and trying to relearn these things, we see the maiden and the mother and the crone all the time. We're seeing these archetypes all the time. And then we have these names and goddesses and things like that associated to the archetype. But there's a fourth energy within all of us. There's a fourth season in Mother Earth. There's a fourth mirror, and that is the Enchantress. And she is fire, and she is destruction, and she's wisdom, and she brings all of it together and says, this is what's serving you, and this isn't. This is what's creating, and this is what's destroying. That is the masculine part within us. But I think that goddess within us has been suppressed and not taught, that we feel shame around bringing up fire. We feel shame around destroying. We feel shame to put you in your place, or to snap and say, hey, my boundary's been crossed. You know what I mean? Back away. We feel shame around that. And it's because we're not even educated about that goddess within us. We're not giving her space. There's no space for her. There's no space for an angry woman. There's no space for an irritated woman or a sad woman. There's no space for her wisdom.
Yeah.
But there's space for the virgin, there's space for the mother, and there's space for the death.
Yeah. And why is that? And, I just talked the other day to somebody, a great guy who had lost a kid, and we were talking a lot about anger, and how anger is such a underrated emotion. It brings so much to the surface, and we're so afraid of it. I think for so long, for me, because of when I got into the business that I got in, I understood the past lives. And for me, it was about a power, right? I knew I had this power, and part of me feared a lot of what that power was. Even though I could use my voice, stand up for myself, I had this sort of lower level fear around standing in my power. What does that actually mean? What does that look like? Who am I if I can stand in my power and stand up against you, but not be loud and stand up against you, but more quiet and reserved in my, just sometimes just standing there and putting your hand up in somebody's face? And, I don't think so.
Or
We've not
standing
been taught that.
Or like even standing in the peace, like choosing the peace, not being quiet and submissive because you're trying to de-elevate a situation, but standing in your peace, in the knowing of your wisdom, not having to argue and validate who you are, not working from that wound, but working from that womb, like, I don't need to explain to you how I move and how I act. I don't need to validate you. I
Right.
just
And
need to confirm.
how many years have we done that? We're trying to make you understand that we are worthy.
Yes, and that is complete chaos. Truly, it is chaos to do that,
Yeah.
because you are so far from you. You're so far from you and the creator within, and the vision that you are able to have when you're holding all of everyone else's vision.
Yeah. I think a lot of dismantling the narrative for me is also bringing in the male energy, right? Because I think when women like us who now are coming into this new space, and there's not just us, there are many women that are entering this new space of who am I really? And I think when the opposing forces see people like us, and this goes way back through other past lives where we have been killed and attacked for who we are, they think that we're taking out the man energy, the male energy. And that is not true at all. Let me preface by just saying this.
I have goosebumps. Oh, don't take the male energy.
The masculine energy is needed, right? But seeing them as a supportive system, and the men now are starting to see that. They're starting to see the difference. A woman that is in her masculine doesn't need a man. A woman that's in her feminine needs a man. She can say she needs a man. She's very comfortable with saying it. When you have these women up here that are preaching, I don't need no man. And I was one of those. Let me tell you, I was one of those women. I don't need a man. I could do it all myself. They're not in their balance of their masculine and their feminine. So I think part of the narrative that I want to dismantle is talking about the feminine masculine energy, not only within us, but within our relationships, the relationships that we cultivate with our husbands, our brothers, our fathers, our sons. I want to talk about a little bit about that.
Sure. I see it in many different ways. I have traveled the world and I've lived in different countries, and I have seen, even in my own family dynamic, how men are raised versus how women are raised. First off, it's very different. And I don't think, this is kind of controversial, but I don't think men are given the space to feel. And then they become fathers and husbands and they don't know how to feel because they've been taught to turn it off, Yeah. And we as women have been taught to turn off our intuition too, so that we are chosen or we fit in or we're accepted, and it kills a lot of our expression and the way we express ourselves in the world. And when you have this coming together, we can't say that it's even true demonstration of masculine and true demonstration of feminine when everybody's coming together wounded. So I just want to say that to begin with. So my experiences are based off of societal norms of this and what has happened as a result. And I don't think that male bashing is feminine at all. I think that having a marriage that I saw its highs and lows, because I've been married for 14 years and it hasn't always been rainbows and cherries,
Absolutely.
I'm a very hard personality, and we were in a military relationship and he was gone a lot. So it gave me the room to be the ruler, and it was just a different dynamic. And then once we got out of the military and we were looking at health concerns and, looking at divorce and all these things, we really had to come together and say, what is important? Why are you important to me? And why am I important to you? And what are the
Yeah.
values that we stand on? And not to be funny, but we're nature kids, we're hippie kids. So we took it back to nature and we talked about tradition and what values we truly have and how you see me as a woman and how I see you as a man and the roles that I expect of you and vice versa for me to be the best version of myself.
Yes.
And when you look at nature and you look at what I think is the divine feminine and the divine masculine is we have this tribal innate core. We come from tribe, like that's what we originated from. And the woman was just as strong as the man, and the man was just as weak as the woman. It was a complement of one another. And they united in the fact that when my home and my family and my babies are challenged, we will fight to the death. We will go to war for that.
Yeah.
And you value my jobs and you understand that your life can't happen without my jobs. And my life can't happen without your jobs. I
Yeah.
cannot be a creative space if I'm in fear. And you are my mighty protector. You are my fearless leader. You are the first defense to my heart and my home. And if we valued that instead of looking at people as like a material possession or what can you give, but how can you complement my soul, like what my soul needs,
Yeah.
then we can't make space. You know what I mean? And that divine masculine is not somebody that parades around and has no emotion and fights and is this brave warrior. It is the one that will cut flesh from bone to preserve the core of his home, his values. And it doesn't matter who challenges that. This is his legacy.
Yeah.
And a divine feminine shares that vision and says, I will create this for you. That doesn't mean you're submissive and you do everything. No, I will create our home and you protect it. You are my first line of defense and I will protect your soul, what you come rest to.
Yeah.
And when
And
it's time to fight, we'll rise together.
together. Yeah, absolutely. And I like that you mentioned the woundedness because we all come from wounding, right? We were raised by parents who were wounded. What did they
Yeah.
do? They wounded us. So how do we raise our children? We can continue the wounding, or you can stand up and say, now look, I'm the cycle breaker. Enough is enough. I'm not going to do this. When I had my daughter, see, I didn't see that when I had my sons. I was much younger when I had my sons. I wasn't awake. I was still in a place of very much that masculine, right? And a lot of that was becoming self-sacrificing, giving up what I wanted so that I could raise my sons the way that I saw, the way that I believed at that time. When I had my daughter, my life shifted and changed because
Daughters do.
I saw then the mirror of myself. That is not what I want for my daughter. I want my daughter to be able to do what she wants to do and not to be able. I want her to be part of something, this system that creates, not that destroys. And I came from the system. I'm Gen X. I came from the system that destroys. Okay. They'll
Yes.
cut
Or
you down. They'll
no.
destroy you.
Yes. Or just to build women that know when to destroy, because destruction is necessary. It is, especially responsibility for something.
Yes.
Destruction sometimes is necessary. But like you said, that creative force, if you come from this creative force and not the destructive force, then you have different eyes when it's time to destroy. You
And
already
how,
see
I
the
want to
vision.
talk a little bit about that destruction, because I feel like a lot of us look at the heart space and we think, oh, well, if I could just open my heart. But that requires you destructing yourself, right? You've
Yes,
got to get deep within that heart space, especially if you've had trauma and wounding. And now there are people that might disagree with me and say, well, we don't need to go in and open that pain. No, but we need to go in and burn that pain away. That pain needs to be
yes,
acknowledged, it needs to be seen, it needs to be felt in order for us then to release it. I've had many deaths and rebirths in this life alone, and I can tell you that my greatest triumphs came through that destruction of destroying what was within myself.
yes. And finally seeing it and bringing it and giving it grace too, because
Yes.
we don't do, and that is the feminine part of us. I think that we can do that. I think that we can hold both sadness and pure happiness within us at the same time. And I think that's one of our superpowers when you do open that heart space, you know what I mean? And opening that heart space doesn't, like, I want to go back to the cycle breaking too for just a second. That is part of really opening a heart space too, because whatever you're addicted to or whatever it is that's blocking you, once you see it for what it is, and you bring up why it's there, and you see it, that's the day you get to choose. You don't need a million crystals. You don't need a million gurus. The day you see the cycle within you is the day you get to choose. And every day you choose against it or for it is breaking that cycle. And then
Yes.
you get to see every cycle. And sometimes you see them in people and it will hurt your feelings. You know what I mean? Because it should. It needs to move you.
Yes. That piece of us that creates, a lot of times I feel like that destruction is such a fearful place for so many people because they feel like that anger, that destruction, it's been oppressed for so long and they're so fearful of it that when it does come time, they don't really understand the creative process, that what it takes to go through what that is. I feel like many of us, myself included, have been oppressed for many, many lifetimes, including this one, which has been very difficult on me, Terry Ann, as the personality, the being in this lifetime. But taking what all that is and how do we raise that next generation now without that fear?
I really think it is about creating a it's creating a bond, I think, with that creative source within. I'm going to say something else controversial. I think from a very young age, they rob us of our imagination and our inspiration.
I
And
agree.
they take information from the mind and they put it right to the root and they are perverting everything. And I think once these kids get a taste of what they can physically create in the physical through their body and things like that, they forget the imagination. And the imagination is where all the magic happens because we take things from our mind and we bring them into the physical all the time, you know? And creation mirrors itself in the womb and in the head space, in the crown space. They mirror each other. You can create with another person and physically bring life into the world, a life that you can only imagine. You don't know it until you meet it, you know what I mean? And DNA is happening, and it's a universe in there, but so is your mind. And if you have a vision for yourself and you are in tune with yourself, um then you can create magic. And I think that's where it needs to start with. I think we really need to go within and teach these kids to listen to that voice within, because we all have it. And we have to give them space to do that. And we have to feed them an environment that feeds intuition
Yes.
and doesn't doesn't feed competition, and it feeds an internal confirmation versus an external validation. You know, if I am sitting with my guides or I'm sitting with myself and I have this idea and I say, you know, show me the proof, show me a sign. And I walk down the street and I meet somebody that has a conversation with me about what I was thinking or what I'm asking, or I see, you know, I ask for a blue feather, maybe, I don't know, and universe responds and talks to me. I'm creating this magic in my life, and I'm seeing the creator within, you know what I mean? And I'm seeing how the world is responding to that creator. And once I start doing that, then it's only going to lead me to people that have connection with me, not a bonding, because we bond too much and we don't connect. And
Yeah.
then we are stuck in this bonding of whatever it is we bonded over instead of this connection, because we don't know ourselves. And we're shamed from the get-go about everything about our bodies. We're not taught about our bodies. We're not taught about our emotions. We're not given space to have them.
And children
And
are
then we
so naturally intuitive. They're so naturally wonderful manifestors. I mean, when I tell you my daughter can manifest against me like nobody's business, it's true. You know, if I like say, I want to go on a hike today, we're going to go on a hike, and she doesn't want to hike, that girl will manifest us not hiking as far as getting to the park, and the park is closed and we can't hike. I mean, that says something to me. When I was learning all this, like, what a great manifester, because she doesn't have the blocks that I have, right? She doesn't have the resistance that I have. She has that openness still as a child to be able to say, well, this isn't something I want to do, so I'm going to create this, and we're going to go do something else. And I'd be like, damn, girl, like, you're always manifesting against me. So I have had to learn with her now to sort of twist the narrative a little bit with her and sort of change up that reverse psychology so that I'm truly, you know, in the space of, all right, we're going to go do this today. But I leave it sort of open, right? And
they're just better at holding the vision. They haven't been like polluted with everything yet, you know? And your daughter is an artist too. And artists, I think, are just different.
they are.
If they're just, everyone's an artist. Let me just say, everyone is an artist. But when you truly just live in that form of you are just different. No is not an answer. Impossible is not. That's not in your vocabulary. Experimenting and failing is normal. Like, it's just different. So your fear and your boundaries and your imagination are just different. You watch yourself so many times pull from your imagination and implement that it just becomes your norm. And if it's fed, like, it's amazing. Like, I watch Olivia pick up those mystery things and she'll say, I'm going to get this one. Well, how do you know you're going to get that one? Because I didn't think of anything else. That's the one I'm going to get. Open. Here it is.
And here it is.
It's crazy. It is the truth. Like, it is the truth. And I think that if we kept creation above our heart space for a while, instead of allowing the heart bonding over wounding, I think that all of us would create from a different kind of space. I think we would all have more of a heart created life than an ego created life. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about that, because I talk about the heart a lot. The heart has been something for me. It was very closed off for many years. I didn't allow myself to be vulnerable because of the pain I experienced in my life. And I think when I say, you know, when you open your heart to people, the world changes before you. I think they think I mean that you just open it to everyone and anyone. And that's not what I mean. It doesn't mean everyone has access to that heart space, right? I am a very open person, and actually I will connect with you through my heart a lot of times before my mind will even be involved. And so if I meet you and I feel this connection through my heart, and I see your heart through my heart, I'm feeling, right, what this is. But that doesn't mean that if I meet somebody and I don't feel that I'm going to give them access to who I am at the core. You can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think that that is the difference between being nice and being kind, especially as a woman. We're taught like smile and blah blah blah. But no, I think that in this life I have opened myself so many times because of wanting to fit in and wanting to be chosen and wanting to please a situation or stop some chaos or things like that. And I think that I have learned, and I'm still learning. People still get me sometimes. They're getting
What
better and
about when
better.
we met? Yeah, what about when
Uh,
we met? You were still a little close. You were like a little like, well, I don't
I
know.
I've been taught at a young age because I was raised a little bit more spiritual than the average person. So I was raised to completely block myself so people could not read my energy. We believe big. I believe big time that people can steal your energy. Like literally, they can siphon off of you and they can be like energy vampires, you know? So um because I'm so wounded, was so wounded in my heart space, I was very defensive, you know. I always was thinking like what is your motive here? What is your intention here? You know, I'm big with intention. What is your intention here? And that also is like a masculine thing. It's a wall kind of that you put up. So when I met you and it was just so open and loving and genuine and there was no competition, it was really like, dude, I feel you. I see your soul. Like, let's jive, let's mix some colors, like let's play, you know what I mean? It was like I'm so used to people taking and so used to it being one way, like being the protector, being that masculine energy that we're talking about, like being everything, being all the hats. It doesn't give space for
Yeah.
that connection. It doesn't give space for things to open. So I was very resistant. And I know that certain information that was passed to you and certain lives that and the information in those lives that we've shared, because we have shared past lives together. Um, I think that I needed that higher level of confirmation because I knew it, but the world had me so guarded
Yeah.
and I was so fearful. And, you know, um, I was still learning who to give access because I was realizing at that time that I am a tool. When you are spiritually connected and you have this ability to see both ends of the spectrum and contain both those energies and give space for that, you just see it differently and you it was hard. It was just hard because you're in this position of wanting to open up and wanting to connect, but you're in this position of fear, you know? And when you do start opening that heart space and you do let that guard down, it creates space for you to see yourself in somebody else too in a loving way. And I think that was the most important part because we saw each other as equals, but then we saw each other as student and we saw each other as teacher and we saw each other as mother and we saw each other as daughter. And it was no competition. It was inspiration. It was like, you're a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
And when you open that heart space, you can breathe so deep. Like that's where we hold it. And when I say someone is a breath of fresh air, it's because you put air into my lungs. You allowed me to breathe instead of be tight. And when we breathe, you know, everything comes in and it moves and you have to open.
It was such an amazing connection. I still, you know, throughout my entire lifetime, I've actually had these beautiful, as much as I struggled in having marriages that had this connection with men, my connection with the female counterparts I consider friends and confidants have been amazingly beautiful. And I've sort of looked at this sisterhood, what it actually means to us. Where are we going with this? I mean, as intuitive as I am, I'm very analytical as well. So I look at both sides of the coin. You would think I was Gemini, but I do have a Gemini ascendant. So I do have some of those aspects of both sides, right? I'm always like looking, oh, I want to be an intuitive, but I want to be analytical as well. So what are we actually rewriting here? When we talk about her story, right? I get full body chills. There's something deeper than my inner being even knows. Terry Ann, on a human level, a soul level, there's something deeper where we're headed with this and the rewriting of her story. You and I have talked about this, God, since the first day we met 4 years ago. Her story.
I thought it was going to happen then. I thought more things were going to happen then. But I am realizing that when we started conjugating this and started using the verbiage of her story, and that was coming intuitively on both ends, I thought that we were in that time. But I think we were in a time of activation, initiation, and now we're seeing this repeat, right? We're seeing a huge repeat of everything. The mind frame of people, sickness, politics, all of it. We can spend hours there. We're seeing this repeat. Yes, hatred. And again, it's just this patriarchal warrior war mentality. And it's initiating, I think it was initiating the divine feminine, because the masculine has been leading too long without heart. They've been leading with their minds too long without heart. And women center that back in. You know what I mean? We pull that back in. So I don't think we have a problem with masculinity. I think we have a problem with direction. And I think we have a problem of morality and what is important to fight for and what we value as success and what we value as like humans. You know what I mean? I think that this repeat is giving everyone the opportunity to see it again and stand differently. And it's giving so many people the opportunity, especially women, to really not be led by a patriarchal mind form. And that's the patriarchal mind form you have within yourself, too. It is not natural for us to be competitive against one another. It is natural for us to be raising our children in a community like situation, a tribal like situation, that your child is my child is your child, and we are raising the next generation. There's no competitiveness. There is encouragement. There is nurture. There is understanding that you have a superpower, I have a superpower, and together we can create, and we can create individually too. And that nobody can do it like you, Terry. Nobody can do it like me. Nobody can do it like our viewers out there watching. You know what I mean? You are your own individual universe. And if you are leading from that heart space and you are creating from that heart space and you are choosing against the wounded patriot, like the wounded masculine even within you, you're awakening to this and you're saying, listen, war and hatred is not the way. You need to open up. You need to accept that you have chosen to be submissive. You have to accept that you have chosen to shut your voice. You have to accept that you've chosen to destruction without creation. And you have to bring that home, and you have to be the heart that you want to see. And that is her story. It is not about these brains. It is not about the ego. It is about bringing creation back down to this heart space and remembering that we are all forms and we can get out of balance, and you are seeing it, and it is unnatural. That is why it's so fiery. It's so destructive. It's so chaotic. It's unnatural. We need to open that heart space, and we do not need to give everyone access. If you can see someone's cycle and they're eating the same crap over and over in mind, body, and soul, they are choosing not to open their heart space at this time. And you have to go to the ones that are waiting. I had this really great thing come to me today. that was about triggers and things like that. And it was having the emotional maturity to say, like you said, you live many lives within your life. It's what gives you wisdom. It's what gives you, your experience, right? You have to learn that if you're sitting at a table or you're having a conversation with people that constantly require you to go into a wounded version of yourself, it is because that person needs validation that it's okay, they're not changing, and you have. And you don't need to validate who you are, because a person that is dying to change or dying for guidance is going to hear you, and you're going to have wisdom for your experience to connect with that person to inspire them to change too. You're not connecting with somebody in a wounded place that you have to use your past to defend yourself. You should be using your past to heal the next. You should
Yeah.
not be using your wounds to hold someone else back. And you have to understand that that mirror means you healed. If they are seeking an external validation, you just stop. You know who you are. You do not need to validate anyone. You need to confirm what feels good and what doesn't. What is a reciprocal conversation and what is not? What is a reciprocal energetic exchange? What is not?
Yeah. And know the difference, and know how that feels within you, right? Because you know when you've been around somebody like that, and I'll tell you, a lot of times it is our family. Our family and I, or we, have chosen to come into this lifetime with things that they will bring us that are difficult. They sort of get stuck into what that is because of the pain body. You know, years and years ago, I read Eckhart Tolle, and he talks about the pain body and how our pain bodies will interact with one another. And my pain body will feed off of your pain body, and it creates this space. My second ex-husband is a perfect example of this energy of his pain body reacting and activating my pain body. And it would be in that chaos. It wouldn't be until many years later, obviously now, that I could see what was actually occurring through all of these interactions we had. It takes a lot to dismantle, and especially if they're in your family, especially if they're in your direct family, it takes a lot sometimes. And I don't want people to get discouraged about that, because, you know, we fall off a bike. We need to get back up. You know, you have got to come to a place, and then there will be a time when you reach that place and you're like, I've done it. I've walked away. I can't tell you how many times I've walked away from people and I've said, I can't believe I actually did that. Like, how powerful is that in and of itself? Not to speak, not to defend myself, not to validate what I'm saying, not to try to get you to change your mind, but the power within walking away from you. I don't need to, you know, step up. When he'd say things to people about me after we were divorced, I didn't have to say a word. I don't have to say anything, because I know exactly who I am and what I stand for now. Before, I didn't know that. So that wounding that we talk about a lot of times, that's what keeps you in that space. And when you're working through that, it's not a one and done. You don't go through this and be like, okay, well, now I'm good, and so now I'll just walk away from that person. It doesn't always work like that. You know, a lot of times we go through that process over and over again. And reality is the universe will continue, if you don't work through that, continue to bring you people that will show you that will mirror that to you. We talked a little bit about our daughters. Our daughters are the fabrication of our lives, right? When I tell you, I had no concept of what that actually meant at all when I had her, versus today. Now she's almost 16. God bless her. A Scorpio, a lot of Scorpio in that girl's chart. Water. I'm fire. She can outdo me. And I've learned through the years to just let her
You can
be.
also boil her. You could also boil her.
to let her be who she is, right? Because she's showing me who I'm supposed to be. She's that mirror for me. Mom, you don't have to listen to that shit. Mom, you can stand up and say what you want. You know, why can't I do what I want? And I remember being a child and having that, but that when I was a child was not allowed. You were seen and you were not heard. You could not express yourself at all. And so with our daughters, that's why I talk a lot about the cycle breakers. So with our daughters, I want you to share a little bit about Olivia. She's a Spitfire. When I first met her 4 years ago, I was like, oh my gosh. I thought I had to run for my money, but man. So tell me a little bit about what it was like for you having Olivia.
Well, first off, she came one day before my Saturn return. So I know she's a special child to me. And I just had a hard time having a child. I could talk about that too, but I had a hard time having a child. And so when I finally had Olivia, she's just been so special to me. I just knew as soon as I held her that she was a game changer. I know I know that something died in me in childbirth, like seriously. And this mother was born. But this remothering of myself was also born that I was not prepared for. And, you know, we joke all the time. She's 9 now. And I say, you know, I've never been a mom before. This is the first time we've been here. And she'll joke and say, well, I've never been a kid before. This is the first time I've been here. And we're like sharing grace and we're having a bond that is intimidating to many, many people, to the point where people like say things like you're too close to your daughter and you're too attached. And like
Yes.
weird. It's like weird to me, but it's confirmation because I've always wanted that. I always looked around and saw these like super supportive family women that like pushed each other up. And I didn't really come from that. I came from a lot of competition. Like, you can be good, but you can't be better than me. You can be smart, but you can't be smarter than me. You can be mouthy, but you can't be mouthier than me. Like this kind of energy. And so it was always like very confusing, and it was not as a kid welcoming, you know, you don't see your clear boundaries. So I just the support and the love and the perseverance of innocence has been so important. And watching her grow and have peace every day and have she's so emotionally mature. She's so intuitive with herself. Like, she's not afraid to say, no, I'm not feeling that today. She's not afraid to say, no, I'm not having dinner over there. I don't like how they treat me. She's not afraid to say, Mom, I don't want to be friends with this person because they don't make me feel good about myself. Every time I have something new, they put me down. Every time I have something exciting, they tell me it's stupid and then they go do it. And she is learning these things, and we're having these conversations, and it's healing the inner child in me. These are all the same kind of experiences I had, but I was never brave enough to say it. I was never brave enough to say no. I was never brave enough to stand for myself. You know, I was so concerned about fitting in. And she's so the opposite. She's so like in her way to be different. You know what I mean? And she just is, and she doesn't try. She just is. And it's very magnetizing, you know? You can't be around her and not feel inspired. You can't be around her and, you know, not shift your mood. You can't. It's impossible. It's like impossible. She's
It's
really been
beautiful to watch. So I have not experienced that either. And I've had people say to me the same things, including her father, who has now passed. So, but he has said to me, you know, there's such a thing as too close. You and her are too close. And I'm like, well, I don't even know how that's possible because, you know, the bond, the connection that we share goes deeper than this lifetime, deeper than anything you can ever understand. Right? I grew her. Like, oh my gosh, like you don't even know what that means. Like, you know, but you're talking to somebody else. So you can't. I think part of dismantling this narrative we have is that you cannot have this connection even with your own child, right?
Yes.
Because
It's a
it's
competitive.
wrong. It's a competition, right? She, why are you so close to her? I mean, even my son sometimes will say, you raise her so differently than you raised us. And I'm like, well, I wasn't healed then. I've been healing a long time, and it was necessary for me. But the part that always amazes me about our daughters is the fact that how much of a mirror they are to ourselves, and how much they're going to put it right in your face for you to see it, whether you're ready or not, because most of us are not ready at the time. And then we have this daughter and she's like, oh my gosh, like I'm going to put it right in your face for you to see. And it's up to you, right? Here comes this choice. It's up to you to choose what you want to do with that. Do you want to continue that pattern of that wounding as we go forward, or do you want to do something different? And I think part of that shift in that narrative is like, what the hell? Like, did I really have to be the guinea pig in this lifetime? But changing what that all means for us as women.
Yes, because it's like dropping that competitiveness, and it's like seeing yourself again, and it's if you do it right, I think, and it's seeing yourself again. And if you did have a problem with trust, it's probably because you were wounded in a place that you were supposed to be very much given love, and if you struggle with opening your heart and things like that, it's probably because your idea of love or your version of love was given to you before you knew what that was, or before you even knew how you give and receive love. And for me, one of the things I always wanted was like somebody that like really had my back, not you're going to throw me under the bus, because I even experienced that with siblings and aunts and my own mother. Like it was a chaotic dynamic growing up. Everyone's doing the best they can with what they have, and raising what they're doing. And I think that having that, like how you said, they have your back, and it's not like out of guilt, it's not out of obligation, it's not out of pressure, it's not out of anything other than like love. They see you, because you see them, and they're allowed to be, and they're allowed to be wild and free, and they're allowed to not share the guilt, because you taken that and you said the guilt stops with me, the people pleasing stops with me, all of this stops with me. I'm consciously choosing every day not to give that to her. And in that, I get the present of that remothering. I am raising her, but she is remothering me. She's reminding, and I'm not saying that my daughter is my mother. I'm saying she's reminding me of what it is to watch your creation grow, and what that was supposed to look like, what it was supposed to look like for me, what it was supposed to look like for my mother, what it was supposed to look like for her mother before, and that is the gift. That is the present that we're giving each other. And the fact that Sophia backs you up, and the fact Olivia comes to my defense every time, she'll be like, I don't like how they treat you, Mom. You need to do something about that. Why are you doing that? Or why do you tell me, not to go around pleasing people, but you don't want to do it and you're about to do it, kind of thing. And it's like,
and they call you on your shit.
I love that though, because that is how I get connection. Like my very best girlfriends call me on my shit, but they also come to my back when it's necessary, because they know me. My kid isn't afraid. She doesn't see me or idolize me. She sees all my forms, and I'm okay to share them with her, because she's a woman too. She has 4 heads too. She's going to go through it too. And I can't be in competitiveness with that. I had my time to be the maiden. I had my time to create, and I'm still creating. I just create with different wisdom. This is about my heart walking in this world and how I want that to look. And I just want that to be happy, whatever that is, whatever that is. And I have faith that having this tight bond, because your mother is like, who creates you? What do you mean? How can you be too close to your mother? She is the one that tell you like you're messing up. And she's also going to be the one to say, yo, I'm so proud of you. Let me show you how great you are.
Yeah. And seeing the eyes through, seeing the world through their eyes. I mean, when she was little, and even now, so she is almost 16. And when she creates her art, it's through her experiences, right? She does
Mhm.
sometimes create darker stuff, which, for the Scorpio, for me to watch that with the Scorpion energy, I'm like amazed at the beauty that comes through the darker essence of her. I look at her and I'm like so in awe of how she sees the world. And I think that's part of what being the creator is, right? It's not just with art. We create with our voice, we create with our body, we create with our mind, we create with our soul, we create with our hands. We do everything. We are the creators, right? And it's not up to anybody else. It's up to ourselves how we
Yeah.
choose to create that.
And what works? Like,
Yeah.
what works for you? You can see somebody else's happiness, and the only thing that you can apply to your life is choice. That's the only thing. You can't steal my happiness. You can't live my life. I can't steal your happiness and live your life. It's something you facilitate within. And if you're always externally competing, you're
Yeah.
never going to be enough. You're never going to have enough. And it's just never going to be enough. It's not.
And
And,
that's, I think,
you
what
know,
the sisterhood is about, this movement that we're having, right? I don't remember the name of the song. I think it's Labor, but she's been listening to this song and it brings something within me. I'm like, she's like, you know this song? And I'm like, this is about the oppression of
I
women.
do
Oh my God.
that.
And you're listening to this, and I'm like so excited, like, oh my God, but she's like, and you know about this? And I'm like, yes, I do. But the
You have
sisterhood
these other,
that we
like
go
My
ahead.
Mother's Savage Daughter and
Yes.
Feed with Aurora and stuff, and it's this primal woman. It is this primal thing. It's coming
Mhm.
to the throats of everyone. You know what I'm really watching too, back to the Enchantress.
Mhm.
I teach painting, and most of the watercolor students that I have are women that have recently retired or have been retired. And I'm very comfortable with the Enchantress energy. I'm very comfortable with that phase of womanhood, because I've lived masculine. So I am seeing it in women. Like, they in their between their 60s and 70s, you know what I mean? They have this second coming of life to them. Some of them are bitter, but not the ones I experience. They're not the ones I experience are women seeking other things. They're seeking things that they threw away when they were young. They're seeking things they weren't giving permission to do. They're seeking things that set their souls on fire. And they're
Yeah.
not giving a shit who tells them no. And they're saying no to their husbands, and their husbands are like, whoa, what the hell, and they're the dynamic in their home, and they're bringing this new fire and this new energy, and it's something we can really learn from, especially like the girls in my generation, because we're being forced either into motherhood or into an early enchantress phase where we have to fight to survive, kind of thing, and fight each other, on top of life in the 3D. And there's so much wisdom to learn, because we are in the phase now that we can choose, and we can start applying a lot of things now before we're retired women alone with no understanding of ourselves. And I'm seeing this new fire be born, and it's not like a submission at all. It's this, nah, we are equal. And actually, I bear more weight, and you're going to have to deal with it on your own, and you're going to have to figure it out, because I'm going to go over here and take this art class that makes me feel good, or I'm going to go over here and take a ballet class, or I'm going to go over here and take a 7-day vacation with my college girlfriends. I don't know, but
Right.
you're just seeing more and more of this need of freedom, and it doesn't make sense, but it makes complete sense. It makes complete sense. And
Yeah.
people are not even aware of the energy that they are feeling is in parallel to this energy we've been calling in for years. This her story. It's no longer history. We are
Yeah.
writing a new. We're not looking back anymore. We're not living in the past anymore. We are creating. We're holding vision. We're letting things die. We're being okay with death. We're being okay with loss. We're letting it sit there and be dead. Let it
Yeah.
sit there and be lost. I'm not fighting for it,
Yeah.
because I'm creating a new vision. This life is new. I already know what happens. What can I create?
Yeah, I think that's part of dismantling the narrative, right? We want to go forward. The sisterhood that I think a lot of us are creating. You said something that sort of got me, because I do know many people that are still stuck in that bitterness phase. And what they create is more bitterness. I talk about this often, and I want you to share a little bit about it. But when you are creating from a space of bitterness, hatred, um, whatever it is, you're going to receive more of what that is.
Yeah.
And when you're creating from that space of inner knowing, whether you know it or not, your soul knows it. Your soul knows this is what you need. Your soul knows it needs this balance. And dismantling the narrative really speaks to that, because when women go and they do these things, and they can be very simple things, just as you said, taking an art class, taking a dance class, going out with your girlfriends. It's not so much self-care anymore. It's that deeper level of understanding. Do you know what you're really doing here?
Yeah. And what is it? Like, what is it? I have done this whole life for children, a job, this, that, giving myself away, because we're taught to give ourselves away at a very young age. Like,
Yes.
just give it all away. And it's like, once you've done that, and then you're just left with yourself, and you realize no one's coming to save you. No one's coming to sit and have coffee with you. No one's doing these things because everyone is surviving. Then you want to change. You want to learn to thrive. You don't want to just survive. You want to say, like, hey, what makes me feel, great? What makes me feel sexy? What makes me feel good? What makes me happy to listen to? What makes me move? What makes me move?
Yeah.
Because some people don't even know what inspires them.
Yes, because they've squashed it for so long, right? They've been told this is who you are. I think sacred wellness for me, that's what something I try to strive home with this channel more is sacred wellness for me is really about encompassing the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual of ourselves. And what that actually means for each person that's doing it, it's having that balance. Is every day going to be balanced? No. Is every day going to be perfect? No. But there's things within us every day that we can do. We can cultivate this practice, and we can cultivate within ourselves. And the more that we cultivate it and grow within ourselves, the more that it comes to the external, and the more people that we surround ourselves with, and the opportunities that come to us. And we change how we feel internally, and we have that balance. There's no more of working, killing yourself, working 60 hours a week and keeping up with the Joneses and having this and having that. It's more about going back to those roots, as you said, communing with nature, being with family, creating from what God gave us, right? He gave us so much. Why do we not create from that? And how do we create from that going forward?
And how can we get to a space that you're proud of your creation? Because so many people, like I even see it as an art teacher, they have an image of their head and they're not accepting what they're physically able to create. And it's like, how can you hate something that comes from you? How can you hate something that you spent time with the creator doing? And if you do hate it, you really need to sit and say, where was I not conscious in my creation? Where was I not choosing? And it has led me to here. And if it's led me to here, then I understand that I can start choosing today, and it's going to lead me here. And walking in that open space, because if you are creating from that bitter space, you will only see that. You will. Every single thing will get you in the world. You'll start listening to things that are toxic to your mind. You'll start eating things that are toxic for your body. You'll start speaking lies to yourself. Not even just to people. You will start speaking lies to yourself and doubting and all of these things.
Yeah. When I
It,
see art, I mean, even just like art, whether you're drawing or art, whether you're dancing or art, whether you're writing, because for me it's writing or speaking, but that flow, you can see sort of when you're forcing it, right? And when you were talking about that, that's immediately what popped in my head, that flow. We lack that ability to have that flow within us because we want to control it, right? We want it to be perfect. We want it to look perfect. We want to say, hey, yeah, I can do it. But we're not allowing that flow to come in because it doesn't fit the norm of what we've been taught. So really
not learning.
relinquishing that control.
Yeah, and you're not learning the process, which then is your mirror of life. If you are always speeding to the finished product, then you're never learning. You're never like present in it. You're never learning the steps that got you there. And then how can you take responsibility if you weren't paying attention? How can you? You know, and any kind of art, any kind of thing that forces you into a process, anything that forces you to sit in a process is necessary, because that is where all the wisdom is. And that is a mirror to everything we do, like we talk about going and sitting in the darkness within us. If you don't ever look at it, you can't take responsibility. Therefore, you're either avoiding it completely or you're experiencing it constantly.
Yeah. It's been an amazing conversation with you today. I could talk to you for hours and hours. And we have. I really feel like today was so necessary, not only for us, but for who's going to view this today. And it's a pivotal time. There's a pivotal shift that's coming. And I just want people to know that through this entire process that you're going through at this time, and if you're listening, that it is time. There's no more time to sit idly on the sidelines and say, well, I'm a little bit, intimidated, but it's time to heal, awaken, transform, and rise, because now is the perfect time for you. Thank all of our viewers and listeners today for joining Keegan and I. And I hope that we will be bringing ourselves together more for you in the future. I'd love to see that, and I'd love to see what grows from this again. So, Keegan, just share with everybody before we leave where they can get in touch with you, what you do.
I am a live event painter and intuitive creator, I would say. And I'm a self-made art therapist, I have found out.
I love that.
So I have Facebook and I have Instagram, and then, you can find me there at Between Two Temples, K. Marie Arts, and Between Two Temples, because it all happens between two temples, our creativity here, and then the connection we make, like you and I are temples. So if we always keep it there, then the creator in me sees the creator in you. And that's where I like to work.
Absolutely. And I will put her links in the show's description later today. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.